author of the book that I used for this week's talk says communication is the first attribute of wholeness. I'm sorry, communion, excuse me. Communion is the first attribute of wholeness. Communion means being connected to life and to God. And you see the word communion, communication, they have that same root word. Last week our quote was, true communication is communion. It is the realization of oneness, which is love. I love that picture of the symphony, of the orchestra, because each one of those people are individuals, but each one of them are necessary for the whole. To have the big sound, to have that oneness that you get with a beautiful piece of music requires all of those individuals to come together. So communication for me is that way that we find our common union. It is the way that we as human beings tap into that oneness that we share, and because we're all spirit, but we don't necessarily always feel that because we're in our own skin, in our own consciousness, and not always feeling that oneness with other people. The way we feel that is through communication, whether it's with words or very often the things that we don't say, as opposed to just the words that are coming out of our mouths. So there's a lot of pieces to it. Last week, we said, I agreed to speak my truth with compassion. I agreed to speak my truth with compassion. Except for those moments when I feel like I have to tell it like it is. Right? When that person just really ticks you off and you just got to let them have it. Where's the compassion? Where's the compassion? We forget about that in those moments. The other time that we don't always speak our truth is maybe when we're afraid. Maybe when we're afraid of what that truth is going to cause, what situation it might bring up. And the big thing, of course, with that is conflict. Would y'all agree? That is the reason probably that most of us don't speak our truth, is because we don't want to make a bad situation worse, or we don't want to create drama or conflict where there might not be any before. Although the conflict is happening inside of you, you don't want to put it out there with somebody else. So we're going to take a whole different take on conflict today. Conflict and interpersonal difficulty are like a storm system that arises when two weather fronts converge. We have let's bring it up here. I want to read it to you the way the author says it. Conflict and interpersonal difficulty are like a storm system that arises when two weather fronts converge. There is displacement, movement, and friction. The forces within the system build in intensity as temperature, dew point, velocity, barometric pressure, jet stream, humidity, landscape, all of that combine to form a distinct rotation of influence, and a hurricane is born. Now, we all know about those here in Florida, don't we? Similarly, competing needs, wants, and values, combined with misperceptions, defensiveness, and the need to be right, create an energetic field of influence that is the storm inherent in interpersonal conflict. Now, would you agree? Look at all of those aspects of conflict. Competing needs, wants, and values. Does that play into conflict? Absolutely. Of course, right? Combined with misperception, defensiveness, and the need to be right. Are all of those things part of conflict? Yes. Big time, right? That's where conflict comes from. So our analogy today, and the whole point of this book, it's called The Eye of the Storm. The eye of the storm now is the point in space where the storm forces are in perfect equilibrium. If you've been in Florida any amount of time and you know about hurricanes, you know how they swirl. And they swirl. And there is that place right in the center of the storm where it's completely calm. It's completely still. Well, in our lives, it's the same thing. The eye of the storm in your life is your center. It is where you experience peace, clarity, stillness, and calm. Now think about those challenges, things that you may be dealing with, conflicts that you may have in your life. How useful would it be for you to watch that swirl around you and be able to stay in your own centered space of peace and calm. Would that be useful to anybody?
It's also fun.
It's also fun. Yes, it takes you out of the drama, doesn't it? Where you can relax, let go, release, surrender. It's all good. I'm here in my calm, in my center, and I can just watch this swirl happen. And as I calm down, guess what? The swirl calms down too. So that is our analogy for today. We are, each one of us, have this place within us that is that place of centered calmness, that is the eye of the storm, as soon as we recognize that and can tap into it. And we're going to spend this week and next week exploring this. So the book is called The Eye of the Storm, Embracing Conflict and Creating Peace. Now, people in leadership here at Oak Brook have read this book. We did it as our core council actually read this book last year or the year before that we did this together. So I hope for those of you who are familiar with it, and if you've been around New Thought for a little bit, you've probably seen this book or read it even. But maybe to give you a few different little takes and maybe some analogies that will help it settle in. And if you're brand new to this, I hope my intention is that your time spent with us today is well spent and that you have something you can use as you go forward into your week and with your family, with friends, co-workers, all of that, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Right? This stuff works, but you have to implement it in the laboratory of your life and see how this works in your life. Don't ever take it just from what I say.
Do we have it in our bookstore?
We do not, but we can order it, right, Lita?
Yeah.
I let Spirit kind of guide me. I don't always know ahead of time exactly what I'm going to talk about or how I'm going to share it. And this is one of those moments. This came up, and the idea of conflict being part of how we communicate, and such an important thing to know how to navigate successfully, that it just kind of came out of the blue, and I pulled out my book because it is one of my favorites. So in the introduction, he says, Gary Simmons, the author, says, "No one is against you. This is the absolute truth. You may not believe it now. You may have a lifetime of evidence to the contrary. But until you realize that the entire universe is for you, you may never experience your wholeness and true worth. The purpose of this book is to awaken you to the truth that there is only one power, one presence and power at work in your life, and that this presence and power lives in you as the Spirit of God. For this reason, no one or nothing can be against you. To realize this is to claim your divine inheritance as a beloved creation of God." Deep, huh? It is. It really is. When you really grasp this, when you really, really, truly understand this, it is life-changing. Life-changing. So to look at the things that are happening in your life, those things that seem like conflict, that are conflict, that are pushing your buttons, that are pressing you, to look at that and see what benefit there is in that situation for you. Now, you always have the option of wallowing around, hanging out in it, being miserable, whining, crying, carrying on. We do. How many people do that? Have done it? We've all done it. Right? It is always our option. But know that there is another way of looking at life. There's another way of looking at those conflicts and those issues so that you can make the most of it. And that is my intention for you all here today. So we'll start out again with this idea of the ladder of inference. And if you've been here for this past month, you've seen this slide even before. The ladder of inference. This is how we come to make assumptions. Something happens. There's the observable data. So you're in traffic and somebody cuts you off. And maybe you have something in your head that says, oh, women are not good drivers, or men are not good drivers, or whatever the prejudice, whatever the thing is, that you have in your mind. Well, that person cut me off. So then you add meaning to it. What a jerk. Doesn't he know he could cause an accident? And you go on and on, you add meaning, you make assumptions, you adopt beliefs about people. We generalize those things, and then we take action on that. So you might ride his bumper for a while, or you might do something. Now, something else that maybe you wouldn't do if your button hadn't been pushed. Right? Now, what would happen if you came to realize that that person who cut you off in traffic was trying to get to the hospital because their wife is is in labor, would your opinion change? Yes, no? Your opinion might change about that person, wouldn't it? But you're only seeing a little piece of the story, and that's the thing. We are all only seeing a little piece of the story of whatever that thing happens to be. And then we filter the data, we add meaning, we make assumptions, we adopt beliefs, and then those beliefs reinforce one another. So if you're looking and it happens, and your thing happens to be female drivers and the person is a woman, well, what happens? You just went ahead and reinforced that belief that women don't drive well. And it turns into a loop. It's a loop. Because you're filtering the data that is coming in based on beliefs that you already have. You add meaning that then reinforces that. You make assumptions, and then it strengthens that belief, and it loops back around again. Does that make sense?
Got it.
And where is that? The filtering data, adding meaning, making assumptions, adopting beliefs, where does all of that happen? In your head, exactly, in your mind. It's not the reality. It's not what's happening out here, what's actually happening. It is what you are making up about it. Experiences are metaphors and mirrors that serve as feedback to what we make life mean. The example I shared with you all when I talked about this was about my 40th birthday and how my family doesn't really, our love language isn't really gifts, except that it was a big one, so I talked about it a lot, and and my birthday came and there were no gifts and there was no big thing, and I was so hurt. And I added assumptions and I added meaning, and I just went to a really ugly place with it. As you can, some of you might too, right? Only to realize that they had been planning a great big surprise party for me. My actions now, you could see there was the observable data, the fact that people didn't say what I thought they would say for my birthday, and then I took action. You can see those two things. All the other stuff was in my head, all that other stuff, and nobody could see that, but I knew what was going on. And I was at that point in a world of hurt. Right? I was in all kinds of pain and drama in my own head about this, and it was totally made up. Totally made up. So our experiences are metaphors and mirrors that serve as feedback to what we make life mean. The first time I was introduced to this concept was in a workshop. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day, from 8 o'clock in the morning till like 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And we probably spent a day on this. So I'm giving you little snips of something that really is really quite involved. And when you can internalize this and really apply it to your own life, again, it is life-changing. So there is the thing that happens, and then there's what we make up about it. Except for us, what we make up and what happened are one and the same. We don't realize that we're making stuff up. For us, it just shows up as the truth. Because you can't, you can't get outside of your own head. For you, it's the truth. Even though, with the other analogy of the elephant, we've got, if you were asked to describe an elephant, and we've got the blind man, again, that was the picture from last week, 6 blind people touching the elephant, and each one is asked to describe the elephant. They're each one seeing it from their perspective. So one says the elephant's like a tree trunk, the other one says, no, elephant is like a wall. No, an elephant is like a rope, if they're touching the tail. Or no, an elephant is like a spear, if they're touching the tusk. Everyone is seeing from their particular perspective and thinking that it is the truth, not realizing that it is only their truth. So there is what happened, there is what we make up about what happened. And typically what we're making up is things that go along with our already in place belief systems. So when I did this workshop, and there were follow-ups, I don't know, for about 10 weeks afterward, and things would come up because life happens, right? You're hit with situations, and the question was always, so what are you making it mean? Because the thing in and of itself really has no meaning. That person cutting you off in traffic really doesn't mean anything, but to you it means the meaning that you put to it, right? It means that females are lousy drivers, or it means whatever, that the roads are dangerous. Now, people have other meanings that they put to things. Maybe things like, oh, that's because I'm not good enough. Right? You break up with somebody and you have this idea in your head that it's because there's something wrong with me. And you'll find all kinds of evidence. Everything that happens then will support that. If that is your filter, that's how you see life, is through the lens of people leave me, or I'm not good enough, or whatever your issue happens to be. And believe me, we all have them.
They're just stupid.
I'm not going to repeat that one. But the thing is, we're all doing it. Every single one of us. We all have our filters. We all have belief systems in place already. And everything that comes at us is filtering through those beliefs. So what are you making it mean? Now, you can transform your experience by choosing to reframe what you see. I love the analogy with the glasses. Has anyone ever put on a pair of tinted sunglasses? Mm-hmm. You know, if they're blue, yellow, pink, whatever they happen to be. When you're looking for a little while, say your glasses are blue, and you're looking through these blue tinted glasses, everything looks what? A little blue, right? What happens after you've worn those glasses for a while?
You pull it off and it shocks your brain.
But while they're still on, it seems normal, right? It seems normal. Your brain kind of adjusts to what you're looking through, and it doesn't look it just becomes the way it is. Until you take those glasses off and set them aside, and you go, wow, look at that. Look at how different that is. And you see, we all have filters. We all have these filters in front of our eyes that distort the world to suit our beliefs. Does that make sense for everybody? I wish we had a workshop, because we could talk about this all day and go through your example, because it can be difficult to see your own. Real easy to see somebody else's. Real easy to see how they're looking, their filters. We could create a workshop out of this. So you can transform your experience by choosing to reframe what you see. And we hear this in a lot of different ways. Change your thinking, change your life. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I'm asking you all to start to look at your life from the perspective of that higher place, that we are each and every one of us expressions of the divine. And how different would you look at life if you really thought life was for you? If you really believed that life was for you and that everything is unfolding for your highest and best good? Would you look at conflict differently? Would you experience it differently? Let me give you another kind of fun little example from my life. Now, I learned this principle, 15, 20 years ago. And practiced it. It was probably, would be what now, 10 years, Brady? I think the story I'm going to share. My daughter was 16 years old. And I was in the practice now of becoming a positive spin doctor. Let's look at this from the best possible perspective. Always, I try to do that throughout everything in my life. And I was kind of new to it at this point when this situation happened. So my daughter's 16 years old, and she is the most adventurous and spirited of my 3 children. And she went to celebrate with friends during a school night on her 16th birthday. And so the doorbell kind of rings, and my daughter had been drinking a large amount, apparently, and it was kind of like, y'all seen Pulp Fiction? They dump the person out on the lawn and take off. Somebody rang the doorbell, and it's like, oh, Jessica's here. Oh, how nice. Look at Jessica. Oh, all right. So I'm doing the positive spin. Oh yeah, Brady, let's figure out what good can come of this situation. And my husband was not hearing that. The police officer, he's like, what good could possibly come of this? Our daughter was drunk, she's 16 years. He just went on and on. I don't know, what would you say? I'm like, yeah, there's some good. Okay, so I started thinking, okay, good that could come of this. Well, maybe now she has her own example. It's not mom and dad telling her, now she knows what happens when you do that. It doesn't feel good, to be, you all know what happens when He let her stay home. I was going to make her go to school that day. But she paid some consequences. And she paid consequences a couple of times. But you know, today, my daughter is a police officer. And she watched, she didn't start right out on the road. She started out in the not the comm center, but records clerk. So, you know, here she is, you know, 20, 21 years old. And those friends that she was hanging out with that were causing all the trouble, maybe even somebody who rang that doorbell, came through records, having to report for their felony charges or different, you know, some of those kids became addicts young. We're talking young people. They really went down a wrong road, and she got to see that. She saw that in real life, the difference, you know, what happens when we make different choices. So she had her own lesson, a completely different experience than having mom or dad say, you shouldn't do this. When you experience it yourself, it's a whole different story. So there was good, I would say, that came from that. It didn't happen overnight, but we did hold to that. You know, I did hold to that. There was going to be good to come of this. And for every situation that happens in our lives, I might not go there right away, but I always bring myself back to that. What good can come of this situation? And that comes from believing that the universe really is working on your behalf.
It's a lot more fun when you realize and you say, I don't want to get over it yet. You know, I don't want to get over it yet, but I know I can get over it anytime. But sometimes you just don't want to let it go. But to know that there is a point when you can say, okay, I'm ready to let it go. There's freedom in that.
Yes. Thanks, honey. Yes, and you absolutely respect your feelings and where you are in that moment. Because you might not be ready in that time, whatever that conflict or that situation happens to be. But you want to be in that place for a little bit. You want to stop your feet and you want to have your little fit. You know, just don't stay there. Just don't stay there. See, because life happens through you, not to you. That is it is a huge distinction that we make in New Thought here. Most people believe they're victims of circumstance, that life is just out there happening to them, you know, and our job is to stay safe and to mitigate those dangers and try to keep myself secure, that life is happening to them. When you realize life is happening through you, that you are an expression of the divine, that you are the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the voice, the feet, the hands of spirit itself. And that is the truth. That is what each and every one of us is here to do. We're not here just to dodge bullets. We're here to live life to the max. Right? We're each here as an expression of the one. So life happens through you, not to you. Ernest Holmes says it this way: God can become to the individual only what God can become through the individual. And what we're here to do is to release all of that, you know, all of that baggage, all those beliefs and assumptions and all that stuff, that pair of glasses, is to set it aside. Is to set it aside and get to the truth of who you really are and what you came here to do. Because each one of us came here with gifts, each one of us has purpose, and that's what we're here to find. God can only become to the individual what God can become through the individual. Now it's difficult because we are very often what Gary Simmons calls a house divided, in that we have this kind of a dual nature. We are human beings, we live in a natural human world, but at the same time we are spiritual beings. Right? So we're spiritual beings having this human experience. And sometimes those two different aspects of ourselves are at odds. And that's basically where conflict comes from. Because on the human side, we have needs that have to be met. You want to have a roof over your house, you want to be able to pay the bills, you've got to feed your kids, all these things that we have to do as human beings. We want to have our needs met. We want to feel safe. We want to feel secure. And we want things that soothe our ego, that make us feel like, yeah, I'm okay, you know, I'm a good person, or whatever your ego thing happens to be. Again, we all have this ego, and it expresses in different ways through different people. So that's the human side of us. We need to have our needs met, be safe, soothe our ego. On the spiritual side of things, there's that part of us that wants to be selfless, that is doing for other people, not for ourselves, but like for everybody else. And craving and wanting so much that connection, that oneness with other people, to feel that. And we want to serve a higher purpose. And sometimes those two sides of the coin, they don't always jive. Right? Serving the higher purpose doesn't always soothe the ego. Sometimes I have to set my ego aside to serve my higher purpose. Does that make sense? Anyone ever had the call that tells you, this is what you're to do? You know, you get that tap on the shoulder. I'm to go this way. I'm to go. Ministry was like that for me. I was never going to do this. I certainly was not going to be a Sunday morning, do a new talk every week minister. That was not going to happen in my ego. You see, because the human side of me said that I could create a couple of workshops, and I could do these workshops all over the country. I do the work one time, and I have thousands of people attending these workshops. That was what my ego was saying. That's what the human side of me wanted to do. Because that's what I did for a living before I became a minister. One of my last gigs was as a workshop facilitator. So I made half a dozen workshops. I went to different places, traveled, and I only did the work one time. Got to be really great expert. So now, it's a different talk every Sunday. And it's the same amount of work, whether there's 50 people in the room, or 500 people in the room, or whoever is watching. It's the same amount of work. I thought, that's not a very good use of my time. That's what my ego said. That's what the human part of me said. But then there's a part of me that is here to serve a higher purpose. And all that I learn and all that I get out of putting a talk together, because believe me, I am living this as much as each one of you. Every week I get the challenges, I get the conflicts, whatever it is I happen to be talking about, that's what's showing up for me. It tests me, it allows me to try out this stuff in the laboratory of my life. So sometimes, again, your spiritual nature and your human nature are in conflict. They don't always see the same road. Bless you when it does. It's wonderful when it does. But it doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen. But I have to say, I am thrilled to do what I get to do every Sunday. You know, to be able to share these spiritual truths and these ideas that have worked for me and for so many others, that it's a real blessing to get to do this for whoever shows up that day. And you all are such a beautiful crowd. All right. The other thing that gets in our way is this idea of lack. You see, nearly every ill we face in our daily lives and in our human family can be linked to a belief in lack. Think about those conflicts that come up, whether with your spouse or at work or with your kids. Lack of money. Right? We can't go on vacation this year, or I hate this job, but you know, I need to pay the bills. You know, so lack of money, concern for money is one of the big things that causes us conflict. How about lack of time? Right? Lack of time. Talk about that show, What Would You Do? Remember that show? I referenced it last week, I think, where they set people up in different social experiments. And they actually set up the situation of the Good Samaritan. It's one of these TV shows, like not 2020, but What Would You Do? So anyway, they set up the Good Samaritan situation. There's a person on the side of the road who is distraught, distressed, no shoes, looking like they've been beat up. And they actually sent seminary students with money in their pockets to go from across I think it was in a park, and they had to walk by this person. And the difference in those that stopped and those that kept going was time. Was time. Those people who felt like they were in a crunch, that they had to be a certain place at a certain time, just walked right on by. I don't see you. When people were not limited in time, they were much more likely to stop and help that person that was in trouble. And they looked at all different factors, but it came down to time. The time. That when we feel crunched for time, when we feel that stress, anybody else get that tunnel vision? I I need to be here, I need to do this thing, which creates, again, conflict. How many conflicts did I have with my kids trying to get ready for school in the morning? Right? Time, money. What's the other thing that we feel a lack of? Just fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. Not smart enough, not rich enough, not thin enough, not connected enough. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. These things, these are the basis here of our conflict. Because again, the world is not happening to you. It is happening through you. It is happening through you. If you can look at these conflicts, these situations, well, I'll just go to the next slide, because it says it right here. Conflict and adversity are actually our midwives. Conflicts arise to get our attention and to help us find our center and the way back to wholeness. Conflict is what brings you to your growing edge. If you could look at the conflicts that are happening in your lives, whether it is with your spouse, your children, your parents, your co-workers, if you can look at those conflicts as opportunities for growth, opportunities for you to become more of who you really are, your life will change. I called those in ministerial school, I made up a little acronym for them, that when those opportunities for growth happen, you go into the fog, which is another friggin' opportunity for growth. Or substitute whatever other word to choose. When conflicts happen, you go into the fog. Just remember that. Another friggin' opportunity for growth. Let me see what I can get out of this. Let me see what good will come from this. Let me see how my soul grows out of this. And it will change your relationships. And it will change you. It will change you because it is going to bring you to your edge, to the edge of your comfort zone. This is your little comfort zone. That conflict is going to push you into that place where you have to step out in faith sometimes. You don't know how the situation is going to go, but you hold on to the idea, to the knowing that the universe is for you and never against you. And you step forward in faith and in courage into that situation, whatever that conflict is, and go right into it. We don't avoid it. We don't shut it down. But we walk into it with eyes wide open and the expectation that good will come of it.
Amen.
Right? Is that helpful to anybody?
Yes, indeed.
All right. So let's look at our affirmation for today. And don't repeat it yet, because I want to go through the pieces. I embrace life completely. Completely, meaning what? The good and the bad, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it looks like. Just embrace it all. Knowing that there is really only one power and presence at work in your life. And that power and presence is always for you and never against you. It can't be anything else. It can't be anything else. We are living in this life, this evolution, the upward spiral of evolution and of life. It has to be ultimately for your good. Unless you yourself shut it down. And again, we always have that option to do that. People do that. If you look around the people you know, and you say, but everything tells me that life sucks, you know, that we're just here scraping by, just trying to survive. And that's what you've seen modeled for you. You came here for you, to get another picture, to get another perspective, to see another piece of the elephant, and through spiritual practice, to get to maybe see the whole prison, who I said that life is an upward spiral, always for our greater good. And he said, I just don't see it like that. So many people in my life have died of drug abuse or of alcohol abuse, and he just went on of all the sadness and all the awful things that have happened in his life. And he even hit a level of success that a lot of us don't. He was an engineer. He was driving that really pretty Mercedes-Benz when he plowed into somebody and killed him because he was drinking. So his life, in his life, there's all this evidence of the opposite, of life is this downward spiral. So I ask him, what are the questions? Again, not what are you making it mean, but what good could come of it? What good can come of even him being in prison right now? Even though he's missing this time with his children, his eyes are opening, you know, he's awakening to something new. If you look outside, and this is part of our affirmation that's coming up. The flower's nature is to bloom, right? The tree's nature is to give its fruit. Our nature is to give, and when we don't, when the tree is not giving fruit, when the plant is not flowering, there's something wrong, right? We feel like there's something wrong. It's not getting what it needs because it's not living in its nature. And the same is true for us. When we're not experiencing that upward spiral of life, it's not because that's how life is. It's because we are stopping the flow in some way. It's because we ourselves have gotten out of our true nature, that we've started to believe and accept other things for ourselves. Does that make sense? Okay, got it. All right, so now let's do our affirmation all together. Oh, one more thing before we do that. I want you to look in your program, because inside I've got some questions for you to think about as you go throughout your week. Now these questions, I don't know if you realize that, if you all pay attention to what's in your programs, but it changes every week, and it's an opportunity for you to journal and for you to take these questions with you and really kind of solidify these messages. So you cannot experience your wholeness believing that someone or something is against you. You cannot experience inner peace when you are worried that something isn't right in your world. As students of truth, and that's all of us here, that's all of us watching, consider us all students of truth, we must eventually reconcile ourselves to the principle that there is no force in the universe which opposes the life each of us is meant to live. Remember, the universe is for you, never against you. So go through those questions to think about during the week. What thoughts and feelings arise for you when you hear that statement, no one is against you? And then maybe make a list of judgments that you have about someone, and realize that those judgments that you're making about somebody else are more about you than they are about them. That may throw you into the fog again. But stay with it, stay in it, and keep looking for what there is for you to gain from it. Okay, now let's do our affirmation. I embrace life completely, knowing there is only one power and presence at work in my life that is always for me and never against me. And so it is.